This is a summary of the Advanced Visualization Masterclass from BrightCarbon. To convert a paragraph of text into a visual slide, we think there are 4 key aspects you need to identify. We call them the players, the scene, the punchline, and the action. Let's look at each of these in turn and see how to identify them and how to represent them on the slide, starting with the players. The players are any entities in your story that you can easily represent with graphical objects. You can easily spot characters, people or roles or companies, which can be represented with photos, icons, or logos. Then you could identify objects or the name of a product or service, which you can represent with an icon or picture, or a text label if it's something quite abstract. You might also be using a direct quote, which should be something short and to the point, so it doesn't take the audience too long to read it. And you might also be referring to locations. These could be physical locations like places on a map or buildings, or more abstract locations like an objective or target. You might also be able to spot some data, values, dates, and other concrete measurements, as well as more abstract measurements that you could quantify, like amount of effort or level of risk. What all these ideas have in common is that you can represent them with a visual device that's easily recognizable to the audience. Once we've figured out who the players are, we move on to setting the scene. The scene is the way in which you're going to lay out the players on your slide. If you're showing data, graphs are the most obvious way to do this. Either a simple bar or line graph, a 3D chart, a pie chart if you're showing percentages that all add up to 100, or a matrix to show different regions where the players might sit. If you're not showing hard data but you have dates, then perhaps you could build a timeline of events. Or you could build a simple flow diagram in a linear way which shows steps from A to B, or a cyclical process that repeats itself. If there isn't a clear sequence of events, you could just lay out the players in a 2D or 3D space, or arrange them in a hierarchy to show how ideas fit together. Or you might just need to show one static image or quote that speaks for itself. Then you might have scenes that show relationships, like a cluster or Venn to show how things overlap, or a jigsaw to show how different ideas combine, or a balance to show a causal relationship between two things, or a push-pull interaction between them. You might also have different variations on any of these scenes, or combinations of them on a single slide. Once we have a slide in mind, we need to think about the punchline. The punchline is the overarching message behind the slide. Which benefit in your value proposition are you trying to prove with this story? It might be about saving money or making money, reducing risk or improving quality, or operational benefits like efficiency or flexibility. But whatever it is, you need to keep this benefit in mind and work out whether you're explaining why it's important, what's involved, or what kind of results come from it. Being clear about this will help you to determine the end point of your sequence and ensure the overall impression of the slide fits the benefit you're trying to prove. Keeping that in mind, we then have to direct the action. The action is the animation that you'll use to change the scene and move the players around to make your point. You might be adding elements to the scene or removing them, making things larger or smaller, moving things around, or merging them together, connecting two or more ideas, highlighting the most important aspect, or you could have something being transferred or given from one place to another, or something that replaces or transforms into another. All of these types of actions and more can be achieved with simple PowerPoint animations. So this is the schematic that we've put together to help you come up with some visual ideas for your messages. You can download a hard copy of this graphic along with instructions from the Attachments tab on the left-hand side of the Brainshark player. You could think of this as a visualization process. Identify your players, sketch out the scene, consider the punchline, and then think about the action. But be prepared to change your mind as the slide develops. Sometimes when you figure out the best actions, you might realize that the emphasis isn't quite right for the punchline, or that you could come up with a better scene to make the point more clear. So try to use this schematic as a guide for brainstorming and inspiration rather than a flowchart. Let's try it with a real-life example. Here's an explanation of how moving to a paperless accounting software solution can make a company more efficient. So first, let's try and identify some players. I can easily pick out account staff and have a picture to represent them. There are some objects, the paper invoices and receipts, etc., and our product, the accounting software, which can also be an icon or a picture. Then we've got some measurables. It talks about high effort and also about accuracy or inaccuracy. Now we've got the players, let's see what kind of scene we can come up with. My pictures of the accountant, the papers and the software can all sit in a two-dimensional space for now. And then I've got different levels of effort and accuracy, which I can show as two bars. Now the punchline will show me how I need the sequence to finish up. I'm using this slide to prove that our product can improve efficiency. And I can use the information I've got to explain why. The final build, the final impression, has got to involve the accountant, the software they're using, and the low effort and high accuracy they gain when they use it. Now, in order to get to that point, I need to work out how the action is going to play out. Straight away from looking at the text, I can see that I need to talk about replacing the paper-based model with the software model. So I want to show the stack of papers first and then replace them with the software. I've got effort starting off high, but then it gets reduced when they switch. So this bar can shrink. And I've got accuracy starting off low with lots of mistakes, but then accuracy goes up after they start using the software, so this bar will grow. Now let's have a look at the finished slide in action. So, if you do your accounting manually with a paper-based process, it takes a huge amount of effort and can lead to errors and inaccuracies. But if you move to our system, it reduces the burden on your staff, vastly reduces the amount of administrative effort, and ensures a high level of accuracy by automating all the calculations. So, a pretty clear bit of visualization there, just using a 2D layout with a simple bar graph to show what happens when you replace one scenario with another. And the final build here captures the overall message. To learn more, click on the BrightCarbon logo at the bottom of the screen to learn about our services, or click on the events link to find out about our masterclass schedule and our live events. Thanks very much for your attention.